and the halls of the DOJ might get a little bit more crowded as talk of a second special counsel starts moving around. Good morning from Fox News Radio. So tell us about this. Is this a possibility? Are we going to get a second special counsel to look into the other side of things? Clinton emails, Clinton DOJ, and that sort of thing as well.
Morning. Thanks for having me. It looks like there's at least going to be more talk of a second special prosecutor. I think at the end of the day, there's not really going to be one. This is kind of an overt distraction by some members of the Freedom Caucus, Devin Nunes. The Uranium One story has been debunked. This was a project Steve Bannon invested in through his institute. A book called Clinton's Cashing In came out in August of 2016. And in it, there were allegations that the Clinton Foundation had received a bunch of money from a company that ended up being bought out by Russians. Now, that's been debunked. There are questions, and we can look into whether or not there were donations made after Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State. But I think these questions about whether we're going to have a second special prosecutor, it devalues the process in general. And it's kind of why you see the public right now hates politicians.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that there needs to be an investigation of any type into, say, the meeting with former President Clinton on the tarmac with FBI then Attorney General Loretta Lynch? There are just so many different little things. Do you think, I know you said you don't think it will actually happen, but do you think somebody needs to look into this?
I think it's absolutely fine to bring Loretta Lynch and Bill Clinton potentially in front of one of the committees and ask them under oath about those conversations. I think that's perfectly legitimate. I think that when you start to talk about, special prosecutors are supposed to be in very rare instances. And we have the president, right before he left for his trip to Asia, pressuring the DOJ to prosecute Hillary Clinton. And then you have Jeff Sessions, who's already been threatened to be fired on multiple occasions, allude to he might be open to that. That's the kind of thing where we get to and this is a term that's been thrown around way too much, but that's what authoritarian governments do. They go after political allies using their version of their Department of Justice. And so I think we need to be really careful with administrations using the Department of Justice to go after enemies, to go after people who they have scores to settle with. And, I think there are some legitimate questions about things Hillary Clinton's done, but those are going to get completely washed away if this just becomes an overt political thing.
Michael Starr Hopkins joining us this morning. One question before we wrap up. When you start to look at this, and you do see, you did kind of mention threats against Attorney General Jeff Sessions, some who say that he has been part of all this, and he is maybe not told the full truth in some of these hearings that we've seen that have been televised on everywhere. Is this a distraction to show that he's working on something?
I think it is. I would like to think that Jeff Sessions has been truthful and forthright, especially with the Senate being that he's a former senator. But there are a lot of questions that are left to be answered because on multiple occasions he said, I've had no relationships, no meetings, no interactions with Russians, and he's had to come back and correct that a couple times. So I hope that when Jeff Sessions comes before Congress today, that he can clear those up in a way that, doesn't denigrate his own reputation. I don't agree with Jeff Sessions on a lot of things, but, he's been a public servant for a very long time. And I think that, we need to reinstill faith in government and faith in institutions. I think that's been chipped away a lot. And so, I hope we can clear some of these things up so that people can believe that the government's there to serve them and not rip them off.
All right, Michael Starr Hopkins, appreciate your time this morning. Again, that story, special counsel, a second special counsel may be needed as questions mount on Clinton, Comey, the Russian dossier, and more. Our Russian dossier, and more. So anyway, we'll see where that goes.